And this could go either way. But yeah, I also, I like the face cams here. Mew2King looks very professional. I like that he's talking.
Are we
Alpharad's
gonna
not
see a
talking.
Dracovish here coming out from?
I'm sure. I would be shocked if Mr. Fish does not make an appearance.
Okay.
But yeah, what do you? I mean, in terms of Pokemon, I don't know how much Mew2King has done, so I'm not sure exactly what to expect. Yeah, I like. Just, I don't know if he favors like. So with Esam, we had some insight, right? Like, and actually, we didn't talk about it too much, but I feel like just really quickly, Esam brought Pikachu, but also just good Pokemon in general. Could support Pokemon like a balanced team. And Zane took one of the best teams that there was. Seijun, who won the World Champ Invitational, the Victory Road World Champ Invitational. So I feel like that was kind of indicative of their styles. Now, based on what we just talked about, what are these player styles? We expect Mew2King to do something optimal. We expect Alpharad to do something wild. So, yeah.
And like having somebody that wants to take the game a little bit, I wouldn't say less seriously, but a little bit more lightheartedly. Where it's not what is my best play return. Maybe it's just like how do I style this turn, or how do I make a mark. That might be a counter, to somebody that's trying to do those, hard level plays where it's like, all right, I'm doing the almost perfect play. But Pokemon is a game that almost never has a perfect play.
Right.
So,
Finding, Pokemon is a game where you could kind of say you have to find order and chaos, in a sense. So we see the teams here. Alpharad is bringing Whimsicott Lucario, Togekiss Dragapult, Mudsdale, and of course, Mr. Fish. Oh, I saw that. Did you see him flash? He flashed Deku really quickly. And Mew2King has a hard Trick Room team. Both Togekiss Dragapult, Ground type, Steel type, Fairy looking thing, and Torkoal versus Dracovish here. So I'm really interested in this one. Mew2King has hard Trick Room with the option of a second mode, Togekiss and Dragapult, and Alpharad could really be doing anything. He's got beat up. He could have eject button. He could just have Dracovish stuff. And again, he has the extremely threatening Togekiss Dragapult. So, what do you think about this matchup, Justin?
I think that both players having access to Togekiss Dragapult is important. It's always just one of those things that you can lead and possibly just run away with. I'm sure you have experience with that yourself. So we also have Mudsdale, Dracovish too. I think Mudsdale's a Pokemon that's kind of really underrated. When it's in the right position, it starts getting boosts properly. It can just sit on the field. Sometimes it doesn't have a way to be intimidated because it'll have on tempo, and also the Dracovish is, if it's a Choice Scarf or maybe even Choice Band, it's just going to be doing massive damage. I like the hard Trick Room mode that Mew2King has access to. It's definitely something that does well against a Whimsicott heavy metagame. And I'm interested to see how, Mew2King ends up playing it out. It's something that, at times can be very flowcharty, but also really needs a lot of, an intuitive plays to get the maximum value out of it. Because if you're too telegraphed, you will lose value turns.
Yes. So I am not positive that Jacob chose his Pokemon. It almost looked to me like he timed out, and he did kind of shake his controllers. So that's interesting. Something we didn't touch on is that Mew2King actually has two redirectors on this field, and both beat up and eject button are really stopped by Follow Me plus Trick Room, which Jason is locked in about 8 seconds. It seems like as fast as he could have. So this is not looking good for Mr. Fish. I'll be completely honest, just from preview.
I do want to mention, I'm going to go back a little bit to the flowcharting thing. Hard Trick Room is something that can almost be played like turn by turn without being stopped in some matchups. And with the way that Alpharad ended up leading, I don't know that he's going to be able to stop something like this.
Yeah, and that looks like your prediction might be right. So for those of you who didn't understand that interaction, Alpharad recognized that Mew2King wanted to go for Trick Room there. He went for Switcheroo and Bullet Punch, which would try and stop the Trick Room. Switcheroo tells us that he most likely has the legendary eject button, and on the other hand, he also went for Bullet Punch to get rid of it right away. However, the problem with that is that Psychic Terrain actually blocks priority attacks, and both those moves are priority. So it would have worked in the Bronzong because it is not touching the ground. And because it's not touching the ground, he is able to hit Bronzong with it. But Indeedee fused Follow Me, redirected the attacks, and It was a rough turn 1 for Alpharad on paper. However, in practice, I think there's a chance that actually wasn't the worst turn, because you really don't want to give Jason a free switch in to either of his sweepers in the back. And even though this is annoying for him, it's not the end of the world, in my opinion.
Indy's going to get the follow me off here. Once again, just trying to redirect attention to itself and possibly get knocked out so it can get a sweeper in. Body press from Bronzong, using its defensive stat to actually do damage. Going into Lucario for super effective. Getting the Steel Spike off into the NDD. Not going to be able to push it even to 75% damage, but also boosting the defense of his own team. Lucario now will be a little bit more physically defensive. We see the eject button coming out from NDD, meaning that he has access without even needing to sacrifice the NDD. Going into Rhyperior now.
Oh my gosh, there's 2 eject buttons in this game.
And it's funny is that like hindsight now says that the bullet punch might have been a better play because he doesn't get an extra turn of Rhyperior.
Right. Well, this isn't the worst situation for Alpharad. He does have, +4 attack Lucario, +1 defense Lucario, and he's burned 2 turns of Trick Room. But he has to find a way through this Rhyperior, because most likely next turn Rhyperior is going to Dynamax and become a big threat.
I'm watching the Mew2King face cam here a little bit.
He doesn't look too happy.
I have not known about the Justified. He's like getting a little bit scared of how much of the boost are raising the attack. Whimsicott possibly still carrying something like a Focus Sash means that there is a good chance that the Whimsicott can actually, possibly create some pressure. We could see some protects or some max guards here, and that's what I was saying. Like the flowchart element of the hard Trick Room. Sometimes you have to make really hard reads and do some really unconventional things with your Pokemon to set up Trick Room again if you run out of turns. So it's not impossible to stall it out. We will see Mew2King's most likely is Rhyperior going for the Dynamax here. Rhyperior, when Dynamax, has an incredibly high HP stat, and with access to Solid Rock, it actually takes 3/4 of the damage from super effective moves.
Why does Alpharad look so happy? I don't understand.
He might be making a really big play here.
But what can he do with Psychic Terrain up? He can't switch around.
Oh, wait.
Oh no! Oh, it was such a good play! It was such a good play! No! Oh no! That would have been the most incredible thing. He would have forced it out on his own. So same interaction as earlier, but unfortunately, Psychic Terrain seems to be the bane of Alpharad's existence. But yeah, it didn't work, but it was almost incredible. And I guess it's what we were talking about earlier with Organized Chaos, because if that play had worked, it would have been incredible, and he would have won the game off it. He would have had +4 Lucario, and that would have been it. But unfortunately, Psychic Terrain, it seems like Mew2King was prepared for the eject button switcheroo stuff.
I think that one thing that really plays out here is, I'm not going to throw any shade at Marcus Stature. He's a great player and a good guy and a friend, but come on, man. Teach your players what Psychic Terrain does.
Oh, no.
Why does he not know what Psychic Terrain does?
He probably just forgot, realistically. Because indeed he's not in the field anymore, and unlike in Generation 7, where Psychic Terrain is so obvious, you have this huge... The whole thing turns purple. Honestly, if you had told me right now, I can't really tell.
The thing is, if he doesn't know what it does after 2 turns, he went for it both times. Might not realizing that the prankster kind of interacts that way.
Yeah.
But I still blame that on the coach. Anyway, Max Quake going off there into Lucario, actually ending the Dynamax Pokemon there. No matter all of its boosts, it's still not able to protect from its own, from the other attacks. So special defense boost going off there. Rhyperior going to be super, super bulky and in prime position to possibly clean this game up. Alpharad is going to have to take this stuff back to the drawing board. There is a possibility for this Mudsdale to put in a good amount of work. Mudsdale does have access to an ability called Stamina, which will allow it to boost its defenses if it takes a attack that it contacts it. Yeah. I think actually any attack that goes into it, it boosts its defense possibly. So, and there's also the chance that Mudsdale might even underspeed the Rhyperior. Don't quote me on that, but if he runs a min speed.
Yeah, I think normally you're right, but I think unfortunately thanks to the Bulldoze lowering Rhyperior's speed, it most likely will be slower than Mudsdale. Though of course it depends on how it's trained, but yeah, it's a rough start. But I think okay, most likely Alpharad's not going to be able to bring this one back. It's going to be difficult at the very least. Dracovish normally carries a choice item. It's not impossible. I've seen crazier comebacks, but yeah, it's definitely going to be difficult. And we see Max Quake taking out the Dracovish. But the thing is, this set is not over. Even if he loses the game, the set is not over. And that's really really important because I feel like Alpharad learned that his main gimmick didn't necessarily work, but he's a tricky man, right? He has more than one tool in his arsenal, and so how can he adapt? How can he move forward from this? Because that's the thing about Pokemon is you can lose game 1 to something surprising, for example, Psychic Terrain. But how do you adapt? How do you go from there, right? Mew2King clearly has a set strategy, and maybe Alpharad can figure out a way to get through it.
This match here, honestly, is my favorite part about this Invitational because we sat there and we discussed what we expect from these players. Something wild, something crazy from Alpharad, and something flowcharty, something optimal from Mew2King. And what did they do? What did they do? Mew2King went for the optimal Trick Room setup, and Alpharad went for something crazy. And what's funny is that Mew2King had the actual answer to it in Psychic Terrain, and Alpharad's approach didn't work this game, but it doesn't mean that he has no chance to do it in the next. I'm definitely excited to see how he can, manage his Dracovish a little bit better and possibly prevent Trick Room from going up. Psychic Terrain is definitely going to be a thorn in his side. He's going to have to figure out a game plan for that. He does have Pokemon with access to max moves that will change the terrain. That might be something he wants to keep in mind. And Mew2King is honestly set to just, possibly try and reenact the same exact scenarios.
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. One thing I do want to mention actually is, how we were talking about random forward smash in neutral, even though it does not typically a good move, but when you mix it in, sometimes it can be optimal. That's ally switch for anyone who doesn't know. Mew2King using ally switch, switching the position of his Pokemon. In this instance, it doesn't matter too much, but yeah, like it's a very tricky move. It's not very well liked among players, but yeah, it basically makes it so your opponent every single time they attack has to play a guessing game for which slot they're attacking. He moonblasted himself, actually. Yeah, this game is most likely over. I think Alfred probably realized... Oh, no. I don't like that text. I do appreciate the difference in player face cams here. I feel like Mew2King is very focused. He has a plan he's trying to execute, and Alpharad does not look exactly the same.
We're seeing our first 4-0 of the tournament.
That's true.
Right?
This
is the first 4 of the tournament, and honestly, I think it's hilarious that it's Mew2King. Definitely somebody that has done quite the beautiful amount of 4 stocks on FD. So, I think that Pokemon is a little bit less indicative than Smash when it comes to getting that type of a Pokemon advantage by the end of the game.
Like a 4-0 versus a 4 stock, you mean?
Yeah, because in Pokemon, you could just make one wrong turn and lose all 4 of your Pokemon, and conversely run the risk of the same thing happening back. There's no, real neutral turns where you have to, exchange blows back and forth. When it comes to, maybe having super effective typing and, these types of interactions, Bronzong going to get the body press off, and we're probably going to see the Rhyperior end up going to the Fire Punch. This will knock out the Whimsicott, and then Mew2King will take game 1. I think he played that perfectly. His tools and his preparation were there, and they were in place. And Alfred's going to have to go back to the drawing board, and he doesn't have access to Marcus to bail him out this next game. He has to figure out how to overcome this himself.
Absolutely. I think that's really good analysis. However, he definitely can. He got a really good sense of what Mew2King wants to do. I think what's going to be interesting from Mew2King's end, so we've said what Alfred has to do, right? He has to figure out a way to get around what Mew2King is doing. But how is Mew2King, let's say game 2, let's say in game 2, Mew2King, Alfred's able to figure out a way around it and is able to beat Mew2King. This is all hypothetical, of course. How is Mew2King going to react when his optimal strategy doesn't work, right? I think that's going to be a big question moving forward here. But of course, Alfred has to get to that point first. He has to find a way to get past this wall that is Mew2King's strategy.
I do think that the Mudsdale is a key player in this match.
I agree. I think Dracovish as well.
Yeah, and preventing the Trick Room is going to be difficult, especially with hard redirection. But if you can maybe utilize defense boosts from Dynamax Pokemon, and more of your bulk to plow to weather the storm of Trick Room and then get rid of the setters so they can't reset it. That's definitely something that will help Alpharad win this game. I do think that in general he hasn't revealed any tools that will give him a quick way to probably prevent the Trick Room or even to neuter the Trick Room sweepers without access to Intimidate or anything. So in this game, he's going to have to really rely on something like Mudsdale, maybe Togekiss for redirection so that he can get off clean attacks. But we're going to see Whimsicott Lucario again I do have a little bit, concern here. I would say it's slightly ill-advised, but I'm sure he's coming in with a plan. Psychic Surge will be set. M2K, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. He came exactly with the same things, and doesn't have anything here that can prevent a Trick Room from going up.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're not wrong, but I think something that Jacob is, or that Alpharad has access to here is that he can actually use Moonblast to get rid of Whimsicott, right? Or sorry, get rid of Indeedee, forcing it out, and that lets him do some interesting things. For example, not what I expected actually. What I was gonna say is that if he got rid of Indeedee turn 1, if Mew2King went into Rhyperior, he could do Switcheroo and Bullet Punch into Bronzong turn 2, preventing the weakness policy. And we did see that Rhyperior, or that Lucario Shuka Berry, so stopping weakness policy from activating would be really huge. But we'll see here. And Follow Me comes out. I wonder why he Dynamax, because like the play that I just mentioned doesn't
He might be trying to target the switch in.
Beat up.
Well, the beat up will force the NDD out.
I don't think he realized that beat up was redirected. Yep. Oh no!
But if he goes for an attack into that slot, if it comes into the Rhyperior, it gets ejected out.
Well,
it could be a lot of damage if he goes for a Steel Spike into that slot.
Yeah, or a fighting into Torkoal, because the thing isn't the Pokemon switching in has not boosted. But the problem is, well, it is Rhyperior, so a Steel Spike would do a ton of damage here. But did he target that slot, or did he go after Bronzong, or after after Bronzong? It is Steel Spike. That's a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage. That's not terrible at all, actually. Justin, do you think there's a chance that because of the defense boost, that boosted Lucario and the Shuka Berry can survive Rhyperior?
Yeah, I do think so. The problem, though, is that there is the Bulldoze to proc the Shuka Berry initially.
You know what? You're not wrong there. They are not wrong there, but maybe Mew2King doesn't realize maybe Mew2King isn't considering the Shuka Berry, because Ally Switch is also a pretty good play. Uh-oh. It looks like Mew2King is looking to Dynamax his Bronzong, based on this play, which is not something I've seen
with
before.
Dynamax you want to be careful is that the HP resource that you're diving into is less potent when you have less HP on a Pokemon. So Rhyperior taking that much damage might even make it seem like it's not the optimal choice here to Dynamax.
Right, that's a very good point. Yeah, I mean, this is not over. I know Alpharad's looking pretty disheartened, but I really don't feel like this one is over. Mew2King actually does choose to Dynamax his Bronzong, and I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen Dynamax Bronzong before. I don't think. I haven't seen anybody do it. So, the bell is large.
Big bell.
Big bell. I mean, but honestly, I feel like if you're Alpharad, you don't feel that bad about that one. Like, Bronzong is not an offensive Pokemon. It's more of a defensive Pokemon, so... Aaron, Mew2King's Coast said he did this in practice by accident so much. No. So based on his facial expression, I'm not sure if he meant to do that. Big damage coming out, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you don't Dynamax your Bronzong too often. Keep in mind, Lucario did have a defense boost. It did have a resist berry, but even still, that's not a lot of damage. Yeah, and Rock Slide coming out, so Jason going either for flinches or I'm not entirely sure. But goodbye, Whimsicott.
Goodbye. Peace out, homie.
Thank you for playing. Goodbye.
This is going to be really big damage. I mean, Alpharad has a chance to go for another Max Steel Spike into this Rhyperior. Not in terribly bad position to get that attack off. For Mew2King, getting a free switch would actually mean getting in Torkoal and not being in too bad of a spot, actually. We do see the Max Steel Spike get the knockout onto the Rhyperior. There's definitely some things going on here that you might not expect from regular plays. That the Bronzong going for a max, the Bulldoze is off of the Bulldoze Max Quake is a lot weaker than a same type attack boost Earthquake from Rhyperior, and also Body Press isn't acting the same way. It becomes a physical attack instead of acting off of your defense.
Right. Also, that Max Quake is coming off Bulldoze, so it's not even as strong as like Earthquake or something. Yeah, so this is Alpharad's last turn of Dynamax on Lucario. So we'll have to see what happens here. I'm actually really surprised he went into Indeedee, because like we said, it would have been really good to go Torkoal there and just start firing off big eruptions. But, yeah, but Mew2King has different other plans here. So it looks like he's actually going for the Double Protect, which I kind of like. He's stalling out the last turn of Lucario's boosts here. But yeah. I mean, first of all, Alpharad is doing better than he did last game, because he already has taken a KO. So this isn't looking too bad if you're Alpharad, because Lucario has so much health left as well. And another Steel Spike. So Lucario has become very bulky, and boosting Lucario's defense also boosts Mudsdale's defense, and that means that Body Press is now stronger, even without getting hit by an attack first. So he's become incredibly physically bulky.
I do like the Mudsdale's positioning here. The one thing I'm actually a little bit concerned of, I know this might be a little bit too much foresight, but I don't want if Alpharad to get comfortable with the way that he approached this game. If we're talking, game 3 here, because I don't necessarily feel like it worked because he did anything unconventional. It worked because Jason, Mew2King went for a little bit more of a different approach to this game instead of just going for the tried and true. The damage here going into Lucario, once again showing that the Bulldoze Max Quake is not as strong. And I mean, Bronzong being, bulkier is much better. But high horsepower targeting the Bronzong, not realizing that Levitate actually does prevent that from hitting.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to be able to knock out the Lucario here. So not being able to get any defensive boosts on the special side. We will now have Trick Room ending, I believe, or never going up.
I believe it's ending, or it may have one more turn, because this is Bronzong's last turn of Dynamax, and I believe Bronzong Dynamaxed on turn 2. So I think we actually have one turn left. But right. It feels like it feels like it should be over. One thing we have to keep in mind here is, okay, so Mew2King's Dynamaxing Bronzong didn't look great at first, right? Like I feel like you and I both kind of had some pause of that. However, Mew2King currently has +2 special defense Bronzong, and Mudsdale doesn't really have a great way to hit Bronzong at all. And we've seen that two of Alpharad's Pokemon are it looks like there's one turn left to Trick Room, by the way, but 2 of Alpharad's Pokemon here cannot do damage to Bronzong, so it all comes down to the last Pokemon. And if it's Dracovish, we've seen that we saw that game 1 Alpharad had Dracovish in the back, and we know that Mew2King has Torkoal in the back. So it's possible that Bronzong could just win this game on its own.
There's a chance. Do you know? I mean, you're a little bit more familiar with the fish than I am. Do you know what type of damage calcs you get on the Torkoal with Fish's Friend and Sun?
If it's Choice Band, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to get the Oko, but yeah. I'm not totally sure is the short answer. Tailwind going up, Psychic coming out. This should be the end of Whimsicott. I feel like if you're Alpharad, you need the KO this turn. And I feel like Tailwind must have ended, because, or Tricker must have ended, because...
No, it's, what's it called? Oh, yeah, no, the turn order's right. You're right. It went for Trick Room this turn.
Let's see. It'll tell us this turn if you and I have missed it, or if the players miscounted. That's unfortunate for Mew2King. He did count the turns wrong. It's not the worst thing in the world, but
he gave the speed advantage back to Alpharad there.
He did, yeah. So that Trick Room basically did nothing. Which, I mean, honestly might not have been the worst play, because you really don't want to give some Mudsdale stamina boosts. So even though it looked like a silly move, it might have actually not been the worst thing in the world. Yeah.
I mean, also, yeah, theoretically, you're giving yourself the chance to go for Trick Room on this turn,
exactly.
On the turn that Torkoal comes in, rather than having to switch in Torkoal and go for Trick Room.
Yeah. So I'm not positive that Mew2King has realized that Trick Room is not up this turn. Based on his play here, he looks like he's not. I don't know if Mew2King realized that using Trick Room twice reverses Trick Room. So now we're out of Trick Room. So. Really, honestly, this one could go either way, and I don't really know what to make of it one way or another, Justin. So, yeah, this turn's honestly really interesting. And honestly, if that Dracovish's Choice Band, I'm mostly positive that Choice Band Fish's Rend will Oko the Bronzong. So we'll have to see what plays out here.
Now, Indy's gonna go for the Follow Me here. Gonna draw an attack into it. Probably get the knockout here. Bronzong most likely will be able to survive whatever Mudsdale throws at it.
Unless it's a Rock Slide and he gets the flinch. I realize. That's might be his best play.
Gonna go for a Body Press as well, meaning that Mudsdale's most likely gonna have access to stamina. That does a ridiculous amount of damage, obviously, because of the critical hit.
And a defense boost. Bulldoze comes out, so I'm not positive that Mew2King realizes the speed interactions here, but that is gonna boost Mudsdale's defense. This game's going to come down to Torkoal, I think. I don't know if I think Torkoal's really going to have to do a lot of work to win this one. Because thanks to Tailwind and the low speed of Mew2King's Pokemon, even though Bulldoze just lowered their speed, they're both still going to be faster than the remaining Pokemon on Alpharad's side of the field. So Trick Room being up it would be pretty good for Mew2King, but we know that Bronzong doesn't have Protect, so Yeah, so he has to find a way. Basically, can he set Trick Room up safely? Can Torkoal hang on long enough? Because Torkoal can definitely win this game, but it needs to maintain its health. And we actually see no protect on Torkoal.
Part of why, as a coach, I didn't really elect to teach Toph something like Trick Room, hard Trick Room, is because I wanted him to remain a little bit more flexible based off the possible matchups he might have to face. When it comes to Trick Room, not being familiar with the way that you have to play out of these tricky situations might be hurting Jason a lot here. And Alpharad gonna have to target down one of the correct Pokemon. Does not read the ally switch.
Oh my gosh, that does nothing. That did nothing. I'm shocked by that. I mean, because of ally switch, it actually allowed Bronzong to move before and cut the damage of Fish's Rend in half. But even still, I would have expected more from Dracovish.
Mew2King's Torkoal able to go for the Solar Beam here after the ally switch, giving it protection. Solar Beam going to go into Mudsdale. That is definitely Assault Vest.
That's definitely Assault Vest Mudsdale, and Mudsdale's getting stronger and stronger by the second. It will take another Solar Beam, but it's now at +3 defense, and I believe that puts the Bronzong in Fish's Rend, Bronzong in Body Press range. And as we see there, it's actually choice specs on the Torkoal, so it's locked into Solar Beam. So I think Alpharad could bring this one home. Mew2King, I think, maybe not realizing that Trick Room is not up or not totally understanding that interaction.
He's got to know by now because of the speed stuff.
I would hope so, but yeah, he's still not going for Trick Room, it looks like. Fish's Rend coming out into Bronzong again. This time it should KO, though. Bronzong is down. Can Torkoal 1v versus 2 of these Pokemon? It's probably not going to be able to, if I had to guess. Rock Slide comes out, does connect, making me proud as a VGC player. Unless Torkoal can one-shot Dracovish this turn, I think this game is probably over. And even then, it's
critical hit.
Yeah,
2 critical hits back to back, maybe.
I don't think it takes Fish's Rend.
Seems to be the only out.
We'll see. Solar Beam into Mustang does not get the KO, and unfortunately Dracovish. Oh, unfortunately for Mew2King, fortunately for Alpharad, he is going to be up. Dracovish is going to easily bring this one home. So wow, we're actually another game 3. Which personally I like to see. I don't know if all the viewers would prefer 2-0s or whatever, but we are going to game 3 here unless there's some horrible misclick. But Fish's Rend comes out, and that's going to seal it. We're going to game 3. Yeah. So this is kind of what I was talking about at the end of the last game. Is each player has won a game. Is Mew2King able to adapt his optimal strategy that didn't work, and is Alpharad able to repeat his chaos? What do you think, Justin?
I really want to see. I know that Alpharad did just win that game, but I do really want to see him, stick more to a game plan of preventing the Trick Room or getting the, winning the damage trades. Mew2King kind of, fumbled a little bit there, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah.
I think that he, was trying to take it a different approach. It didn't end up, providing any type of, surprise factor. There wasn't enough damage output from a Max Bronzong to really threaten Alpharad, and wasting those Dynamax turns, even though he did end up getting a boost for the late game, didn't really help him against the powerful output of Fish's Rend. So Alpharad thanking his fish, getting that game. I really do, as I said, I want to see him go a little bit more aggro, get some of this Trick Room stuff out of the way, and I'm glad that he was able to use Mudsdale a lot better, possibly bringing in possibly applying the Dynamax to a different Pokemon other than Lucario in the next game could be really huge. And I'm interested to see how he uses his Whimsicott. If he can, utilize the fact that Bronzong doesn't touch the ground to get that switcheroo stuff working. It could be a really big play in the making. But going into game 3, I think that Mew2King has showed his hand, and Alpharad still does have quite a bit of a surprise factor with a couple of his Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like something that I would like to see from Alpharad is maybe electing to leave the Whimsicott on the bench. I don't feel like it's been doing that much good here, especially without the Focus Sash. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's something that could be pretty helpful for Alpharad, is maybe leaving Whimsicott on the bench. But I don't know who you bring instead, right? Like, because I do feel like the beat up, like if he can just get around the Follow Me and the Psychic terrain, he does have some interesting options. I would, he could consider Dynamaxing like Whimsicott to overwrite the Psychic terrain, but at that point you're wasting your Dynamax and your eject button, so or most likely you'll be wasting your eject button. So yeah, we'll have to see. I'm really excited to see how the players adapt here and how this game plays out differently than the first two. And we actually see Dracovish up front. Hey Justin.
Yeah.
let's say Whimsicott Moonblast into Indeedee, okay? And then
No, it will not.
it
Will
won't
it?
double.
No, I'm saying will it? Will it KO the Bronzong? I know what you're about to say.
Well, no. What I was gonna say is, let's say Rhyperior or Torkoal switch in. Is Fish's Friend doubled? Because those Pokemon don't move this turn, even though that slot moves.
Yeah, no, I think it still counts as double damage.
I feel like
We'll have to see. I mean,
we'll have to see.
It'll reveal, but I do think it would still count.
Yeah. I feel like it wouldn't, but that's an interaction I'm gonna be honest, I haven't seen. So this is really interesting. I really like the adaptation from Alpharad here, going for Dracovish up front, giving him a chance to one-shot things. And actually, I like this play for one reason in particular, and I think this is really, really smart. If Alpharad does not go into Rhyperior, if let's say Alpharad goes into Rhyperior, he Moonblast, he goes into Rhyperior, he has to either get KO'd on Rhyperior, or I honestly think he would get KO'd on Bronzong. And if he goes into Torkoal, then Torkoal can't really do anything to Dracovish because it 4 times just the attacks. So, that's the right turn 1. This is going to be huge. He either gets the potential Oko on Rhyperior, or I feel like, I think there's a pretty good chance that Choice Band Fish's Friend Oko's Bronzong. As a bit of a fish expert myself, I think there's a non-zero chance that we can just pick up the Oko on the Bronzong here. Rhyperior is the switch, so honestly, Justin, I think something's going down to Fish's Rend. It is Fish's Rend into the Rhyperior, and one of Mew2King's best sweepers is one-shot, and I don't see how he's getting through the Dracovish anymore. He only has Torkoal in the back, and Dracovish is a 4 times resist, so that was an incredible turn 1 for Alpharad. Really, really reading into Mew2King's game plan, and unlike in Smash, where you can do the same thing over and over, and it's, chain grabbing is optimal, right? There's not that much your opponent can do. If you make the same turn 1 play every time in Pokemon, you can go for something a little riskier and just pick up a one-shot knockout like that. So that really changes this game. And for the first time, I feel like Alpharad is really in control in the set.
Now we're seeing the Torkoal come in here. I do think that Mew2King possibly going for a Dynamax with his Torkoal. He's not in a terrible position. He can start dishing out damage. He can get the HP buff. And he will be able to escape the bind of the choice spec, so he could change moves, which is incredibly important. With Sun up, Trick Room up, he's still in a decent position where he can get, start picking up knockouts, but he's going to have to make the most of these Trick Room turns. Knowing the damage output from the fish, he can definitely capitalize on it possibly being choiced as well and being unable to protect. So this is a turn where, if Mew2King wants to adapt and go for, a hard punish, he would be able to possibly go for like a max overgrowth and a body press into the Dracovish. And, if he was coached properly, he would know to keep the support Pokemon on the field doing nothing.
Yeah. The one thing, though, that we have to mention is that Dracovish is now 1/4 as powerful as it just was, because it's lost half of its power, it's lost half of its power via the Sun, and it's lost half of its power due to Trick Room, making it the slowest thing on the field right now. Well, slowest thing on as compared to Mew2King's Pokemon. Another Dynamax into Bronzong. I'm honestly really interested by that. But if there's one Pokemon you want to have in Trick Room doing damage, it might be Torkoal. Eruption takes a one-hit knockout. Bronzong is once again boosting, and Justin, I'm not positive, but I think this combination of attacks will do over 50%. It does. This is not over by any means.
He was able to get the special defense boost, which could help against the rest of Alpharad's team if he elects to go into something like Togekiss or maybe a special Dragapult. But Fish's Rend will knock it really far down. Even
that is 1/4 the power it's supposed to be. It did 70%.
Yeah.
One thing we have to note here is that Torkoal is choice specs. We did learn that from this game, from that damage output. And the thing about choice specs is it says you can't switch moves. And the thing about Eruption is, with Eruption, your how much damage your base power is based on how much health you have remaining. So Eruption's 1/4 of the power it just was, and it becomes very, very weak. So I don't know about this one.
I think that Alpharad having access to Dynamax still and possibly the Dragapult is huge.
Oh, I forgot you could still Dynamax.
And, it does look like even with Trick Room, Alpharad was able to... I really like the adjustment. That was what I was saying. I wanted to see him to put the ball in his court. That turn 1 abusing the eject button on the NDD. Excellent play. Mew2King once again, not realizing that the Eruption's damage would be locked in even after getting hit And being unable to knock out that Dracovish means that it was able to reduce the Torkoal so low.
Mm-hmm.
Repivoting, something that comes a little bit more naturally to experienced players is board positioning. It's something that these people aren't too familiar with. We're going to see the eruption here of the very much weakened damage. And a max Bronzong going to have to go for an attack, going for the max Quake into what I presume is the Dracovish.
It's going to be close. I'm really surprised that Dragapult didn't Dynamax there. Is it going to KO?
It does not.
It holds on. Thank you, Mr. Fish. Alpharad, loving that play. Mew2King, I mean, it's not over necessarily, but it depends on if this Dragapult is physical or special, I will say. Torkoal's going to drop now, which means that Mew2King has only his 2 support Pokemon left. And he actually goes for Phantom Force. He does not elect to Dynamax. Phantom Force is one of the best moves for stalling out both Dynamax and Trick Room, by the way, for those of you guys who did not know. And I think, I believe we do still have a turn of Trick Room left, if I'm not much mistaken. I guess we'll find out. It will tell us right now. Trick Room is not over, so hopefully Mew2King... Actually, I think we have 2 turns left, don't we? Because he Dynamaxed Bronzong turn 2, because he lost... Yeah, just because this game has been so fast-paced that I've already forgotten. So it's not over for necessarily. One of the nice things about Indeedee here is you can go for Follow Me and just try and... You can ensure that Phantom Force doesn't do anything. And... that's pretty good, because Phantom Force not being able to do damage is really, really nice. So Max Quake comes out. He does pick up the KO on the Dracovish. I think I would have liked to see Follow Me there, redirect the Phantom Force to take no damage, but that's kind of a more nuanced thing that you might not... he might not realize that. Or maybe he has other plans. Maybe it's very fast in DD. Although it would probably have to be very fast to outspeed this Dragapult in Trick Room. Psychic comes out. There's no target. Phantom Force comes out. Last turn of Dynamax on Mew2King's side, and that's a lot of damage, Justin.
It was a critical hit.
That would make
and
sense.
Life Orb chip.
And Life Orb. Wow.
So we have 1 turn of Trick Room left. Yes, you did mention that the NDD would have been able to redirect and create an immunity to the Phantom Force.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of those things where, more experience helps you out and stuff like that. Type chart, super important to know. You don't get to bring one with you to a tournament. But Alpharad bringing in the Mudsdale for the end game, and now it's a situation where it's 2v2. There is still a possibility that Mew2King is able to get another Trick Room up and could possibly get the damage down into the Dragapult. But one thing that's kind of really important is that Mudsdale having access to an Assault Vest will prevent it really from getting knocked out too easily.
The thing is that Bronzong now cannot touch either of these Pokemon, unfortunately. Bulldoze and Body Press are 2 of the worst moves you can have in this situation. You can't even lower Dragapult's speed thanks to its Clear Body ability, and Mudsdale, every time you hit it, becomes a little bit bulkier on the physical side. So if Mew2King is going to win this one, he needs to find a way through this Mudsdale. I think, and he basically needs to do it with Indeedee. Indeedee is going to be the Pokemon that is the most important to winning this game for him, and I don't think it's going to be enough, Justin. It has no item. It's not traditionally a super offensive Pokemon, and Psychic Terrain is about to expire, so it's not 100% over. But it's looking tough, and it's looking really good for Alpharad. He does Dynamax here, and I forgot that he still had the Dynamax available. This might be the nail in the coffin for Mew2King, and it might be what makes Alpharad the victor. So, Dynamax Mudsdale is not going anywhere anytime soon.
This set kind of went a little bit more like what we expect. I mean, game 1 definitely was kind of a steamroll. Mew2King showing his hand, the whole hard Trick Room stuff. Game 2 came down a little bit to, not knowing some mechanics. And now game 3, Alpharad actually had adapted to everything he learned. And, Mew2King kind of didn't really play the cards in the right spots, I would say. And is going to, most likely drop to these situations. But we see an ally switch come out from the Bronzong, allowing the entity to tank one of those Max Knuckles. Max Knuckle having a lower base attack than most of the other Max moves at 95.
Oh god, that did nothing.
And we're seeing exactly what you talked about, Wolf, the stamina getting activated there. The Mudsdale with the max HP bonus and stamina is going to be able to start, boosting everything up. And just make this cleanup a lot easier. Yeah,
and Psychic Terrain just expired, which, for those of you who don't know, Psychic Terrain is a 1.5 times boost, so that damage you just saw in the Mudsdale, it's now 1.5 times less than that this turn if you were to go for another Psychic. So, this is gonna be really, really tough, I think, for Mew2King to bring this one back. Dragapult on its own. Also, keep in mind that Max Knuckle just boosted Dragapult's attack as well, and so we already saw how much damage it was doing. I think a Dragon Claw would probably KO Indeedee from this range based on... 1.3 times. You guys are right. I'm sorry. yeah, a Dragon Claw would most likely KO the NGD here. Phantom Force doesn't affect it, but we'll have to see.
Dragon Claw does come out from the Dragapult. Will go into the NDD at +1. It does get the knockout. And now this Mudsdale's in prime position to go for a max knuckle right into that Bronzong. And that should most likely end the game. He does actually go for a max rock fall with a +1 and the boost in damage. Does not KO it because rock is actually resisted by steel. Hanging in there for another turn and a critical hit even. So there is no real way for the Bronzong to get the knockout on either of these Pokemon. Body press gets used and
boy will
stamina
it
comes
try.
out. Yeah, that Horus gets goes for that, that defense boost. He has an elastic heart,
Yeah, he has an elastic heart. And that's probably gonna be the end of this game. I thought that was a really interesting set. I really like the strategies both players brought, and although, like, of course, you can say maybe the players weren't as familiar with mechanics as they should have been, I still really enjoyed seeing the way that they adapted, seeing their thought processes. I feel like we got a really good view of that, really good insights of that in this game. Like seeing the adaptation from Alpharad Game 3, and seeing just such a dominant win turn Game 1 from Mew2King. I mean, props to both players. Honestly, I thought this was a very good set. From both.
And your boy has managed to do it with the fish.
Dracovish went from, and that's what I was talking about. It's anyone can lose, right? It's easy to lose. How do
you do it a lot?
Thank you. But how do you handle that when you get really you lose 4-0 Game 1? How do you adapt? Yeah, so I hope Mew2King's able to keep his head up. He will be going up against Zane in the losers bracket, and yeah, so I hope that I really hope he's able to kind of maintain composure. And really keep his head up, because this is not by any means over. He's still in this tournament. He still has a very real chance to win this one. So I don't know. I hope that he's able to stay